Hey guys, I'm Lauren.
Today with us, we're interviewing Arjun. He started a project to provide devices to seniors so that they can access telehealth.
Hi, my name is Arjun, and my sister, one of her friends, and I started an organization called Telehealth Access for Seniors. And basically, what we do is we've become a nationwide effort with over 80 volunteers across the country. And what we do is we collect devices from friends, family, and anyone who we know and give them to both medical practices and veterans hospitals, and then they distribute them to patients who need them to access these virtual appointments.
So, what gave you the idea to start all of this? It seems like a really big project.
Yeah. So basically, both of my parents are involved in healthcare, and they had transitioned to an online virtual telehealth model as a result of this pandemic. And so we noticed that many of the patients were elderly patients who either did not know that they could use telemedicine or could not afford to buy these phones or tablets that they needed for these appointments. And so we thought, hey, a lot of people have devices at home like us that they're just not using, maybe from a couple years ago. And so we thought maybe that's true for a lot of other people. So the logical solution was to connect the seniors who needed these devices with the people who could donate who had these devices.
That's really impressive. It's clearly very professional. You really know what you're doing. I'm curious as to what the process for setting up such a professional project is like. What did it take? What did you have to do?
Yeah. So basically, at the start, we thought it would only be like me and my sister collecting devices, giving to maybe our parents' practices, maybe giving to some of their friends' practices, stuff like that. But then eventually, we got a lot of people from other states to like solicit devices, connect with practices, stuff like that. And it was actually a lot more complex than we originally thought because there are a lot of forms that you have to fill out to solicit like both devices and monetary donations in these states. So we had to spend a lot of time for each state filling out each of these forms and then like paying the fees for each of them and then mailing them in for some of them. That was like part of the process that we didn't really expect, but yeah, it was still an important part.
So, I'm curious as to like when you started all of this because it couldn't have been just like a week ago because it seems like a really giant project.
Yeah. So my sister and I came up with the idea in late March, I think, like March 25th or around then. And then so then we just got a bunch of friends on board, and since then we've just been collecting devices.
So you mentioned you have a lot of friends on board, you have your sister helping you, and all these volunteers. So, who have you seen kind of helping you along the way? Is it mostly family? What kind of volunteers are you seeing? Who's really involved in the process?
Yeah. So interestingly, everyone on our team is either a college student or a high school student. And what volunteers basically do is that they connect with a practice in their area, they contact the practice, and then the practice most of the time says that they need X amount of devices, and then the volunteer will use social media, texting friends and family, and other outreach methods in order to collect devices or monetary donations, and then they will give those devices to practice who then distribute it to the patients.
So that's kind of how you've been spreading the word of your project is kind of through word of mouth, through kind of modern communications with a lot of younger people who are volunteering.
Yeah, and another way we've been getting a lot of donations is actually we've been on some of the news networks, and we got quite a lot of donations from there from people who were just watching, and then they saw they had some devices, and then they mailed it to us, which has been really helpful. So we've gotten a lot of devices from that as well.
Wow, that's amazing. So, it seems like a lot of people are like stepping up to like volunteer for your project right now. Um, and it just seems like in general, like during the pandemic, people have been like so much more charitable. And since you run a charity yourself, I'm curious if you have like tell your perspective on the importance of charity during this time.
Yeah. So I think that given that there's a population who really needs help, and like for example, seniors in this instance, it's kind of really important to help those people because, for example, a lot of us might have grandparents or other people who have a lot of need to have these doctor's appointments, because they have like chronic conditions or something like that, and they need to see their doctor, but they simply can't because they don't have those devices that they need for these virtual appointments. And obviously, going to the doctor is not an option anymore.
So, seeing that people have been so charitable during this time, how can the people listening right now donate to your cause or volunteer for your cause?
Yeah. So right now we're accepting both monetary and device donations, and we have a link to our website that I think will be posted in the description. Basically, there's a form where you can say I have X amount of devices, what type of device it is, whether you can provide a charger, stuff like that, and then we'll coordinate either a pickup or you'll ship it to us, and then we'll distribute it to the practices. And or if you don't have a device and still want to contribute, we do have a GoFundMe set up, and we're using that money to pay for shipping, to pay for chargers, to pay for legal fees, stuff like that. And so that's still, and also to buy tablets. So any amount of money can also help.
Do you know how many people you've like provided these things for? Just like a general estimate.
Yeah, yeah. It's been approximately 450 devices
Wow.
across the nation.
Wow. So we received your submission to want to be on the podcast a while ago, and that number was so much smaller then, and it wasn't even that long ago. So the fact that it's grown that much since the last time we talked to each other, that's insane. So you're definitely having an impact. You're not in the beginning stages anymore, and that's amazing. Have you seen like your project really picking up speed as it's been going along? Are you guys on the upturn?
Yeah, we've definitely been getting a lot more both devices and volunteers recently because volunteers like spread the word and then more people join and then more people join based on that. So we've definitely been seeing a lot of volunteers join in recent weeks. And yeah, device donations also go up at that pace as well.
That's awesome. And I definitely see you guys just making an even bigger and bigger and bigger impact into the future. So, anybody who wants to contribute to this, all the links to be able to contribute will be in the description because they're really making a difference. This is so professional and it's so organized and it's so desperately needed during this time that it's so impressive that a high schooler took the initiative to do this.
So for people out there who maybe want to donate to this, what are some of the specific devices and things that you're looking for people to donate?
Yeah. So we're looking for any tablet or smartphone that is camera enabled because a lot of the time for these appointments, they simply having an on the phone checkup is not enough for them. They need to be able to actually use that camera. For example, they can look down their throat, stuff like that, via these virtual appointments. So that's one of the main like specifications. Besides that, we're basically accepting everything.
So this clearly is a very fleshed out, long-term project that you seem to have spent a lot of time on. How much time do you think this has taken you?
Yeah, I think I've definitely put a lot of time into it. There's been a lot of Zoom meetings with like the other administrators. There's been a lot of time we've put into like filling out the forms. There's been a lot of time that we've been putting like organizing the devices, putting them with guides, cleaning them, stuff like resetting them, stuff like that. So I think I've definitely put a lot of hours into this organization and will continue into the future.
And on top of that, you're balancing it with school, which is just beyond impressive. I know I sound like I keep repeating myself saying, oh, that's so impressive. Oh, that's so crazy. It's just because I can't get over it. I can't imagine how much dedication it takes to do so much on top of dealing with the pandemic yourself and your school and even just being a high schooler, going through all these hoops to make an impact. It's awesome.
So since you've made like such a big impact, there's obviously a lot of parts and pieces to this. But what do you think the best part of this is, or your favorite part, at least?
Yeah. So I think obviously the best part is being able to know that you're making a difference, know that you're like helping people access healthcare, which is a really important part of their lives. That has definitely been really rewarding because you definitely know that you're making an impact when they really need it.
And this must be kind of creating like a sense of community, with you having to communicate with so many people around the states and the nation and even people in your family. It's not just helping others, but it's bringing your community together, right?
Yeah. So I've definitely had to like work a lot with my sister. We've had a lot of meetings together. We've had to brainstorm ideas together. We've had to work together on organizing devices, a lot of stuff, especially with my sister, which means that I think we've gotten a lot of time to interact with each other and like know each other better and stuff like that.
Is your sister still in high school or is she in college now?
No, she's a junior in college.
So obviously you've delivered a lot of devices and a lot of things to many, many seniors across America. Um, but how specifically are you spreading the word to these seniors and their families about this organization exists and they can get access to these services?
Well, actually, we are not in communication with the seniors. We are mainly giving them to the practice, who then distributes to the seniors. Because a lot of the times we are not like legally allowed to know who those patients are because of like medical privacy laws. So mostly it's been through the practices that they've been getting.
Makes sense. But I guess then, on a similar note, how is it that you're spreading the word to new people that can contribute, volunteer, donate, and all of that, or even to these establishments that can help distribute? How are you establishing yourself so that everyone notices?
With regard to the volunteer like point, we've been using a lot of like social media, and people have like gone to our website. They've seen our like press stuff like that, and so that's how a lot of them have gotten involved, along with being like our friends and then us telling them via word of mouth. But on like the practices side of things, uh, many of the volunteers individually call each of these practices, ask if they have a need, and then if they do have a need, which oftentimes they do, then they'll say how many devices they need, and then they'll like coordinate with them from there.
Like I know that just from a personal note, I've seen your organization and you in advertised in our school's magazine or on our school's emails. So you're clearly getting the word out to a lot of different people that way.
Yeah.
And you should. It's crazy. It's so organized. I know I'm saying the same thing again. I just can't get over it.
Thank you.
It's something that absolutely should be in our school's notes and on social media and being recognized, because I can't get over the fact that you're in high school and you've done something so polished and so big.
Thank you.
The scope of this project is just massive. I can't imagine starting a nonprofit even just within the Orlando area, let alone the entire America.
I don't know if this necessarily needs to be included, but like I guess good to know is that along with the devices, we're providing obviously chargers, but also guides on how to use like FaceTime, how to use the video conferencing apps that like medical practices use. Like there are these things called Doxy and UpDocs, and we've provided guides on how to use that, along with guides on how to set up an email, stuff like that.
And do you produce these guides or are you just distributing them? Do you like make guides?
We have a couple of volunteers have made these guides to distribute to these patients.
So you really like taken that extra measure in order to not only provide them with the materials, but make sure that they know how to use them.
Yeah, because some of them might not have used an iPhone or a smartphone in the past, so they need to like know how to set up an email, that sort of thing.
So obviously this has a major use like during the pandemic and during this time, but are you planning to continue it after the pandemic is over?
Yeah, definitely, because we think that telehealth is the future in terms of medicine, because not only immediately after this pandemic, many of the seniors will not be able to go to the doctor's office for fear of like another outbreak, stuff like that. So they will still continue to need to use these devices for telemedicine, but also in the long term, people can use telehealth because a lot of the time they don't have the time or the resources to go to the doctor's office because they're like swamped by work, stuff like that. They can just do it from the comfort of their own home. They can do it from like their office. They can do it from anywhere, which makes it really accessible and really easy to use. So we definitely think it's a long-term thing.
Absolutely, that's awesome. I feel like you're saying so many smart things, and I'm over here like, ah. And that's my only reaction. I mean, it's all I really can do. I'm kind of in awe.
It truly is amazing what you're doing and what your organization is doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Arjun, for coming on and telling us all about your project. It's truly amazing what you're doing, and I can't wait to see where this goes in the immediate future and the long-term future.
Yeah. So if anyone listening wants to donate or volunteer, help in any way, the links are in the description, as well as the links to our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Twitter if you want to follow us for future updates. And we also have the link to the Google form that you can fill out if you want to feature your project on the podcast. So get productive.
Get creative.
It's your core time to shine.